the Afghan refugees are here, tens of thousands of them. The exact number is not known, but it's going to be over 100,000 most likely. One estimate here, 111,000 Afghans. Interestingly, if you think about it, the U.S. government evacuated over 100,000 Afghans and 5,400 American citizens. So the discrepancy there is very telling. And Debbie and I were on the podcast together several days ago, and I expressed some ambivalence about these refugees. I think that when you have people who have helped the United States, it is a good idea to stand by your allies. But as I begin to look into this more closely, all kinds of worrying signs emerge. Now, the first one is that the Biden administration is apparently has a plan to relocate these refugees all over America. And it looks to be that they are emphasizing swing states. Now, that is itself really telling. They're not only emphasizing swing states. I see that Salt Lake City, for example, is on the list. But I see Phoenix, I see Denver, Colorado, I see Jacksonville, I see Atlanta, that's Georgia, and I see St. Louis, that's Missouri. I see Raleigh, that's North Carolina. So it could be that the Democrats here this is part of the same strategy that they have on the southern border, which is bring in illegals, dissipate them in the swing states, try to consolidate their advantage in those states in this way, or at least over the long term. Now, there's some Florida Republicans, including, I believe, both Republican Senators Rubio and Scott, who have basically said, we don't have a problem, send some Afghan refugees our way. We want immigrants that are socially conservative, that are hardworking, that are pro-American, that help the United States. So Florida, or at least the two senators, don't seem to be concerned about this type of immigrant relocating to Florida. In other words, we saw, even in 2020, the example that, by and large, the Cubans, the Venezuelans, the people who came from countries where they were fleeing bad things in those countries, ended up voting right, voting for the Republicans, voting for Trump. Now, that being said, when I listen to the rhetoric of the Biden administration, these Afghan refugees, these are the people that we owe a debt to, because after all, these are the people who were our translators. And I say to myself, translators? What, you had 100,000 translators? These were our allies, Dinesh. They were really helping the United States. I don't deny that there were probably people who were working closely with the U.S. military, but I refuse to believe that there are 100,000 of them. That is absolute nonsense. The simple truth of it is that the Biden administration seems to be basically taking everyone who showed up, seems to have no proper vetting process. It could very well be that they're Taliban guys who go, listen, we can take some of the war to the United States. Why don't we show up? I mean, these guys have a beard. We have a beard. Those guys don't know our names. They don't know who our relatives are. They're not asking U.S. military soldiers to vouch for us individually. None of that. America's not even doing any of that. So these guys are going to come to a country, and listen, this is not the America of the 1940s or 1950s. We're a divided country. We have dilapidated cities. We have major problems of drugs and other things in our own country. We need to work on nation building here at home. And yet we're taking in people from South America or through the southern border from all over the world. We're now taking in these Afghans. And let's remember that these are people, by and large, who are tribal people. They're committed to Sharia, even if they're not Taliban guys. These are guys who are used to a very different way of life. There was an article in 2017 by Cheryl Bernard, the wife of a former U.S. ambassador who's himself Afghan-born. And she said that the Afghan refugees who have actually been taken by European countries over the last several years have very high rates of crime, very high rates of public dependency. And she said, look, I'm a little pained in writing this article. I'm writing it kind of reluctantly, but I do want you to know that there are problems that come with this. And yet we're hearing nothing about that. Listen, if these Afghan refugees ended up in the Tony suburbs of Washington, D.C., in McLean, Virginia, in suburban Maryland, if they showed up on Rodeo Drive in L.A., if they showed up on the Upper West Side in Georgetown, Berkeley, Palo Alto, Santa Monica, But I think you know and I know that's not going to happen. The idea of the Biden administration is not to stick them in liberal neighborhoods where they might assault or rape the daughters of some prominent, lobbyist or some prominent attorney who's a Democrat. No, the idea is, why don't we kind of give them to the heartland? That's, after all, where we've got the political problem. Let's deposit these refugees over there, and long term, let's harvest the political benefit of it.